everyone. Welcome back to Iron Bay Research. This is episode 12, and we are continuing the conversation of we left off last time. We were going to tell a story that happened to us on military housing that really kind of lit a fire under our ass, I think. It was...
The anticipation of the flood story.
Yeah. So it was... I don't remember what years it was. Like 2015?
This was 2015. Yep,
Okay,
because I incorrectly said I graduated the spring of 2014. That wasn't correct. I graduated the spring of 2015.
Okay.
And then I moved down with you the end of 2015. So It was Christmas time, and we had family coming in for
Chloe,
Christmas.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dave and Alexa were possibly coming over. So Bryce's siblings were coming down for Christmas, and one was definitely going to be staying at our house with us on base. The other might have popped over to visit, but we hadn't worked that out yet. But anyways, we lived in, it was called the Airborne Housing, because it was right across from Airborne Towers.
Yeah, this is in Fort Benning, Georgia.
Yeah. And they were old World War II homes. So they were cute in the way that they were laid out.
Yeah.
Little two bedroom.
It was a 3-1.
No, 3-bedroom, 1 bath.
Yeah.
Yeah, with a massive basement. So it worked for us because we didn't really need space, and it was, it was just old and junky. At least the floors were all wood, so it wasn't like it was nasty carpet or anything.
It was old and junky, but for like your first owned space, it worked.
Yeah, it worked for sure.
So,
it's not something that you would probably choose because it was stinky and musky. And the tile, to give you guys an idea, the tile and all the finishes in the house were the same thing you'd find in like a public school or a hospital.
Yeah, like those little 1x1 kind of like
white.
Checkered
speckled.
white.
Yeah, it was just like very cold.
Yeah.
But anyways, it worked for us, and we didn't mind it because we knew it was going to be temporary and not a for everything.
Yeah.
But like we had alluded to on the previous episode, that was the only option given to us based on Bryce's rank.
Yeah.
So
it wasn't that only house, but you're only allowed to live in like
house. Yeah.
Be frank, it was the shittier homes.
Yeah.
For like the lower enlisted.
Yeah,
guys.
and they did have, which we'll find out after we tell this story, we eventually found out that there were other nicer renovated homes available, but based on the priority list, those weren't available to us because of Bryce's rank and how late we joined the waiting list.
Well, something else too.
Like
she was reserving them for someone else.
We'll say, yeah.
Yeah,
So anyways, Christmas Eve. It's just a massive storm that comes through. Nothing crazy, not a tropical storm or anything. Just lots and lots of rain. Lots of rain throughout the week, and then on Christmas Eve morning, right before family was about to fly down, our basement was just up to our waists in water.
Yeah, it was completely flooded.
Which luckily we didn't have anything like insanely valuable down there. It was just
all my gear and stuff
all of Bryce's military gear, which is expensive for sure, but luckily those were up on shelves and we were able to salvage most of that. But our washer and dryer got screwed because they were flooded, filled with water completely. But anyways, I think what had happened is we called the property management. She was very reluctant to come out because it was Christmas Eve, so she said it would probably have to wait until after the holidays.
It was like a week.
Yeah. And we said our water is shut off and our heat is shut off, and it's not warm in Georgia during the winter. It was still 30 and below. We were like, we can't live without water and no heat for a week. That's crazy. So we were like, can you guys put us up in a hotel? Because this is at a time where we literally had zero money. And we didn't even have a credit card that we could have put it on because we just didn't have a credit card at that time.
And the thing is, you shouldn't have to like put that debt, like it's base housing. Just like put us anywhere.
Yeah, and it took us saying these logical things that we thought were common sense to her, for her to go, oh, okay, I'll get someone out there to at least pump the water.
Yeah, to at least look at it.
To at least look at it.
She didn't even like want to do anything, and then the handyman came out, and then he was like, yeah, you guys should get new housing. He was like all for it. I'm like, thank you.
No, yeah, well, what he said is he was just an old guy, not associated with the military at all, but I guess he had experience with the military, and he was like
a vendor.
Yeah, he said, I've seen this before. Did you know that they actually have houses on base for people that are in transition, that are fully furnished?
Yeah.
They just save for people while they're awaiting permanent housing.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh no, we didn't know that.
Yeah.
And there was like a specific term used for it. It was just like...
It's like temp housing.
Temp housing, yeah. And we called the lady again, and we mentioned that to her. We're like, hey, is this a thing? Like, do you guys have this temporary... And what did she say? She was like,
no, we had to say there's people that need them or something like that.
Yeah, she said, we do have them, but there's people who
might need them.
Like, and we were like, we do need it. Our house is flooded. We have no heat, no water.
I wish I remember her name. I would totally call her out.
Yeah, it was awful. I feel like it was Carrie or something like that. I don't know. But she was just not empathetic, didn't want to deal with us because it was Christmas and she had her family Christmas. And we were like, look, you know, we do too. We know worse things have happened, but it didn't seem like a hard ask for them to move us into temporary housing.
Yeah.
Just not with all of our stuff, just like really quick for the week until she said they can get someone on it. So, anyways, we were really fussy at this lady. Time goes by. This poor guy is working on Christmas Eve for us to get this water out.
Yeah.
So bless him. To see if maybe when we got the water pumped, our stuff would come back on. That was the goal, our heat and water coming back on. But it was just taking really slow. It was like hours until the water got pumped. But anyways, she called back hours later and reluctantly was like, okay, I can put you in this temporary housing for the next like 4 days. And we go to it and it was like...
Down the road, gorgeous. Like very akin to like an Airbnb.
Yeah.
Like stage and everything.
Yeah, it had full furnished, and it was just sitting there, and we had to bring that up for her to even offer it, which we just thought was asinine. But anyways, that was our Christmas Eve and Christmas we spent just dealing with that crap show, which obviously, I mean, this isn't a pity party. Worse things have happened to people during those times.
No, it's not to say feel bad, but I think that was like the spark that was like, leading up to the point that we want to talk about is we were so out of control of our situation that it made us never want to be in a situation where it's out of our hands. And that felt yucky. Not being able to, okay, we can just go here for a minute. We can just solve it. It was like, there were too many players involved that... Yeah. Like we couldn't even I couldn't even pay another vendor to solve the problem. We had to wait for like their chosen vendor.
Yeah, because you're not allowed on base.
Yeah, it was just nonsense. And so... Right. I think that really put like a scar on us for like one... And one, too, anyone talk about the efficiency of government, I think about that. Like, no, because that lady, there's no... accountability. She's like, I don't care, I get paid hourly.
Yeah, no one was holding her accountable. She sat on it for hours and decided she felt bad after she called us back hours later. And it's like she sat on it. It was like, oh, I guess I can give them this temporary. Like, it shouldn't be that way.
Well, if that was a company, I mean, if that was a rental, that would have been that would have been like legal repercussions. Like, hey, like, you know what I mean, like an insurance claim. But
exactly.
There's no accountability, and I'm sure anyone that's lived in government housing or military housing agrees with that statement. Like, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was like, hey, that was just one more thing that like, I don't want to be in the military anymore. This is stupid.
Yeah, sure. Because I mean, and obviously it's not like an end of the world scenario. It was just like a massive inconvenience, but something that if that happened to us, like Bryce said, in the real world, we would have been able to handle the situation and it wouldn't have been frustrating. The flood would have been unlucky. Yeah. And I think that's what's annoying to us is like the flood, we were jokingly carrying our stuff out of the water. Yeah. Like we weren't even in a bad mood.
It was how they handled it.
It was how they handled it that really set us off. It was like, shit happens. Our house flooded. let's take care of it and move on. But the way that we couldn't take care of it because of all the stupid red tape of the military was just like so enraging.
Yeah, it's just
and that's what frustrated us. Yeah.
And so I think nowadays too. Just right now we went through a hurricane and our roof lost some shingles.
Yeah.
But I was able to go up there and do like a little patch, and then we called insurance, and we're able to kind of handle and solve the system and not have to go through a third party to go to a third party.
Yeah, like we can do whatever we want.
And if you run into someone stupid, like you can usually work your way through that.
Sure.
So that was just like a really big. I think we already decided that, like, hey, I wasn't going to re-enlist, but that was just definitely, like, one of the nails in the coffin, like, not interested.
And things did work out for us in hindsight because our house became unlivable after the flood. Yeah. They could not get the water heat back on, so we got moved to the top of the list for the renovated homes. And we instantly were able to move into a renovated duplex, and it was awesome.
Yeah, it was like a 4-bed, 2-bath.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. Funny enough, down the road, like a 3-minute drive.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, that lady annoyed us, but then in the end, it's like our situation forced her to have to do right by us, which was like,
yeah. It's like we're like, living in like lower enlisted housing. Like, how can this get any stupider?
Yeah,
but she figured out a way to make this dumb. But anyway, so
awful, but
so that's our fun little Christmas story.
Yeah.
Definitely a shit show. But yeah. And I'm sure everyone else has some sort of story out there that was just like the kick in the teeth. I'm just like, I never want to deal with this again.
Yeah.
And anything we do now is just like, and it wasn't just that example, but anything where we don't have control. And maybe we sound like control freaks saying this, but like.
But I think everyone likes some sort of control. Yeah. If you're not in control of your situation, that can lead to frustration.
Yeah.
Like, all around.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of another situation.
Like not being able to go on vacation where you want to go to, not being able to just provide basic things. Yeah. So it's and what it alludes to is, money. Money enables you to do a lot of these things correctly. It gives you the freedom to do this and that. And I don't know if that was the exact time we started really like thinking about like, okay, I'm getting out of the military soon. Let's start thinking about money. But I think those thoughts were definitely like approaching us.
It was like a catalyst.
Yeah.
To, extreme frustration.
Yeah.
Never want to be in this situation ever again.
Like if we had $500, we could that problem would have been solved. We would have gotten a hotel room.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
So,
yeah. But the fact that it was being mismanaged by someone else and it was out of our control was just such a bummer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, yeah. we it's funny, we don't really have a sub to talk about. We're gonna kind of wing this one, but I think where I want to drive it to is I think we left off last time.
I got nothing, so you can go.
Yeah,
you can talk about what you suggested earlier.
Yeah, do you want to run it into like leaving the military and then like getting into like getting out and what now?
Yeah, let's just leave it there. Let's continue on our life path. So I was down there. I still didn't have a job at that time when we moved into that new house. I got a job like a month later.
Yeah. I think we talked about you working at the auto dealership.
Barely. We just talked. We said how much it was and past time and yada. And then we can go through like, we can kind of skip on to getting out because so that 6 months I spent in Columbus by myself at home, just working a regular 9 to 5, getting through, passing the days by until Bryce was done with his deployment, and then he finally got back, and it was like a weight lifted, like, okay, we can start getting out now. So for you though,
we can talk about that, like getting out, like all the process of because I'm sure that's common.
Sure.
So,
but I don't know. So a question I kind of wanted to ask you was. Something you didn't really talk about, but was very apparent at that time was, in your unit was pretty prestigious because it's spec ops, right? Of when you get it and how people view it and how, I feel like people inside that unit hold a sense of pride because they're in that unit, which as you should, you guys worked your asses off. So, but when it became apparent that Bryce was going to get out, I'm not going to use the word abuse, but I'm going to use like the way you were treated during when they knew you were going to get out. You're kind of just like put to the wayside. And I can imagine that was really stressful too, because now you're just playing this waiting game, but also like work is just awful because everyone knows you're getting out. You know what I mean?
It's like, what a high turnover. Like? I think the re-enlistment rate is pretty low. Mm-hmm. I know it's at least half don't.
Sure.
Like I kind of just pulling out my ass to be honest, but like just the way like the hierarchy works, there's no way it's more than half. Especially if you're not, and the war was ending, so they weren't like drawing up numbers.
Right.
But yeah, it is kind of a weird feeling when you know you're not going to get out. It's almost like
when you know you are going to get out.
What's up between heaven and hell, like that middle ground?
Yeah. Did you mean when you?
Sorry, when you know you are going to get out and not re-enlist.
Right.
You have this weird. It's like, well, they aren't going to do anything to really promote you. Just really no reason to, but they still make you do the training. It's a very weird time. And it is a weird feeling emotionally a little bit because it's just you're in this weird
limbo.
Yeah, you're in this weird limbo. But I'd already kind of been in that limbo because I had a back injury, and so I had to switch roles midway through, and that was kind of tough to deal with too.
Yeah.
Just for like not physical, but like more like emotional reasons. Yeah. Just having to like shift the job.
But I think which we'll get to in a little bit is. Hindsight's 20/20, right? That blow to your ego having to do the more admin stuff versus the physical stuff ended up being a positive when you were creating your resume when you got out of the military. Because I feel like other people, if you just were infantry like some of the other guys and you didn't have like the training room experience, we won't go into details, but those who are familiar with the military know what the training room is and the admin stuff for it. But,
well, I think more is so I had a back injury, and then the last 2 deployments I did, I was able to work in the command center where you're is a bit more information based in that and intel based, and that worked really well on my resumes getting out. And also too, for me to work there, they had to have me get a secret clearance. Mm-hmm. Which not a lot of other people got, and that helped me in the workforce when I got out. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. I think in the moment I was really frustrated and hurt.
Because you worked really hard for the physical
I was very annoyed, and just kind of down on myself. But then obviously when you get out, it's a different story because they're just saying, hey, these things happen for a reason, or whatever you want to call it. But but so I guess transitioning to getting out, I did have a better resume than if that didn't happen, so that definitely helped.
Sure.
It was stressful because usually you're given, it's like up to a year where you start prepping to get out of the military. But that last deployment I had, and I think I went like a training thing too.
You got back in August and you were supposed to get out in November, so it was like
I had 2 months to get what should have been a 1-year period. I think it's called like EASing, something like that. But
not PCSing. Never.
No, I think it's PCSing is when you move.
PCSing is when you move. Yeah.
Anyways, it's when you're getting out. Yeah. It's a very long process. You have to turn in equipment. You have to like sign out of medical and this and that. It's like not like hey, I'm turning in my 2 weeks. I'm done. It's like a really intense process. You have to hunt down all these people and things around base. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
But I had to condense that down. You have to file for either do a whole bunch of medical meetings to file for like your disability, this and that.
Sure.
But so that was very hectic. But the light was approaching at the end of the tunnel. Like, hey, we're getting out. And I think we knew what we were gonna do. We were gonna move back home with your parents.
Right.
Kind of as like a holding period until we kind of figured out what to do.
Sure.
But we knew. I think at that point in time we had talked about like when we get out we want to buy a house.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think that was on our radar.
Yeah. I don't think we ever really considered renting.
Yeah, and I don't know why we didn't consider renting. I think it was one of those things where now we have a different view on renting as times have changed and the interest rates are insane. I think we now feel that renting has its advantages in certain situations, of course, but I think back then, 10 years ago at that time, we were of the mindset that if we could get a house and pay the same monthly to a mortgage of owning something that's gaining equity. It felt like renting was putting our money in
just kind of throwing your money
burner.
away.
Yeah, exactly. So
I remember the conversation. It was from Houlihan, I think. He was like, the way he saw it was just
Houlihan?
like,
Is that a movie?
He was a guy who played cards with a lot. I don't think, but he said the phrase of like he felt renting was like throwing money into a fire pit, which is correct, but it's situation dependent. I think like renting or buying isn't always the answer. It's based on you, but I think we had been not building equity for the past 4 years. And we were like, I'm just kind of tired of not owning my thing. So I'm ready to go.
Sure.
And your parents owned the house. My parents were in real estate. And so it was...
We were comfortable with that.
Yeah, it wasn't like a foreign concept. Like, whoa,
and we didn't feel nervous to buy. We were like, that's what we want to do.
And we knew the VA loan was good. So.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. That's
so
true.
It was like, hey, nothing down, whatever.
So we can get into that really quick. I'll just quickly segue. So Bryce got out.
Yeah.
And it was like the end of November by the time we were all packed up and we were in. Because you had to go back a couple times to pick up some stuff. And
well, I think... Yeah. So we drove back together with your car.
And the truck.
And the truck. Like a big Penske truck. Mm-hmm. And then I flew back and drove back the Bronco. And I'll leave you with one last funny story. It was the day I left. If you ever got out of the military, you know this feeling. It's just like a weight's lifted off your shoulder. You're just happy as you can be. Just excited. Charged. Yeah, ready to get the hell out of there. And there's a lot of emotions too, because it's like you're leaving a lot of like the closest friends you'll ever meet.
Oh yeah.
But it's a weight up. You feel like you're being free. And on the way back, the drive was from Georgia to Virginia by 12-ish hours.
Yeah.
I had this old beat up piece of shit Bronco, a '94 Bronco. And the engine started having the car started having engine issues in like the Carolinas, and so I would be able to it was in South Carolina, like the engine just died in the middle of the highway, and I just had to like the power steering died. I had to muscle it over to get over onto the shoulder, and the next exit was 2 miles away, and so I had to sit for 20 minutes and try to start it up again, get it going. It would drive 100 meters and die again. And just from me going that 1 mile to the exit took 2 or 3 hours. And then I had to pull over. I think I pulled over an O'Charlie's or something like that.
Yeah.
And I sat there for 3 or 4 hours, kind of letting... I didn't know anything, so I was let me just let the engine relax. Yeah. I don't know.
Cool off.
Yeah, I don't know shit about cars. I was let me just give it time. And it did, but I had to go 40 miles per hour the rest of the way home. And I ended up making this trip 18, 19 hours long. But I was such on cloud nine.
Did you feel at any time the military was just oh, your car doesn't work, you can't get home, we're gonna take you back now?
Honestly, at that point I would have been just I'm gonna walk the fuck home. I was just such in cloud nine. I was just nothing's gonna dampen my mood. So yeah, what a shit show.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So we're in Virginia. We finally make it.
Yeah. So now we're in Virginia. I think
we're living with my parents.
Yeah.
And I had emailed. I had called and emailed my previous boss at George Mason Mortgage, my first job that I had gotten, and told her the situation and that I'd love to come back to work there if they'd have me.
Yep.
And she was like, oh, absolutely, but it's really tricky right now because we don't have room, but I have a big meeting in 2 weeks or something, she said, where I'll talk to my boss about it and see if we can get you in. So it was something where it wasn't really a shoo-in. I didn't know if it was going to happen.
Yeah.
So I just started applying like a crazy person in case that didn't work out.
Yeah.
So,
wait, real fast. Do you want to pause it here, or you want to run to a new episode?
We can keep going just for a second. Yeah, we can just talk about our new jobs, and then the next episode we can get into maybe the house hunting and stuff. Yeah. So, anyways, I was applying like a crazy person to all the jobs, and meanwhile, I was also working with Bryce's dad, who we spoke about owned government contracting business, and he was like, he doesn't really have a position for me job-wise at his company.
Yeah.
If he did, he would help me out, but what he could do was try to get me a government clearance.
Yeah.
Which was extremely helpful. So while I was applying for jobs, looking for something in the meantime, I was also applying and doing all these background investigations and things like that to hopefully get a government clearance so that other opportunities would be available to me once that came through, if it did. Because we didn't know how that was going to go down since I was like his daughter-in-law. I didn't actually work for him. We weren't sure if the government was going to be like, oh, screw off. Nepotism, fuck yourself.
It was so kind
we
of
were like
Hail
Mary, we'll see if I can get a clearance and we'll go from there. But those take like a year or two long, so that's not something I could wait on. That was just like in the meantime type of thing. So anyways, my boss, well, it was funny. It happened on the same day. It was weird. I got a call from one of the random applications I sent out from an engineering firm called AdTech, and they offered me the position that I applied for at $20 an hour, so like $40K. And I was like, oh, that's a great start for us. I was just, for me, like we have talked about.
Well, think about it, it's double what you were making.
In Georgia,
No, more than that. But you're pulling
I think I was born like 18, 19 in Georgia. No, it's double, because I was making $10 an hour and that was $20 an hour. But obviously, it's DC prices. So, but for me, I was just, I want to get my foot in the door. So whatever you offer me. And, but I was asking for at least $20 an hour when I was applying, and this engineering firm was like, we'll give you that. I just talked over the phone. I didn't even go in for an in-person interview. They just really liked my resume. We had a really nice conversation. She was like, you can start. And I was like, okay, great, just give me the day and I'll get back to you, just to make sure, think on it, look them up as a company. And she sent me over the benefit packages so I could see all that. And the same exact day almost, it felt like Beth, my old boss, emailed me from George Mason Mortgage saying she finally had a spot for me. Same thing. She was able to give me $40 an hour. And I was like,
I forgot that happened.
It was weird. I can't remember if it was the same day or like around the same time. But it really made me think, and I was like, do I want to do the post-closing thing again? I really enjoyed my conversation and everything I saw with this engineering firm, and I thought it would be a cool experience. So I actually went ahead and told my old boss for the mortgage company that I was going to move with someone else. I remember I didn't end up
I forgot that it was the same pay.
It was the same exact pay. So it was like a 1-for-1. So
it's almost like W you know, W don't.
So I ended up sticking with the engineering firm. And oddly enough, they were about the same commute. They were both in Fairfax. So that's kind of what I ended up doing. And it took me about a month and a half from when we got home to get that job. It wasn't super quick, but it wasn't too long. I was just out of work for like a month and a half. And,
we'd saved us some cash.
And you were Bryce was going to George Mason University during that time. You started in January.
I caught the spring semester.
So we were getting his BAH from the GI Bill.
And then I think I was doing...
which was like $2,500. It was pretty good.
Was it? I thought it was...
Yeah. What? 27 maybe?
Yeah. So, if you don't know, it's called the GI Bill benefit. If you do time in the military, you get paid to go to school. Right. So it's not only is school free, but like they give you money as a stipend
for housing.
That's in if your class is already paid for, so that's like for housing. And
so it was great.
So I know there were a couple options, but it's based upon the zip code, and Northern Virginia, Fairfax had like higher housing, so we went there. Because the commute was the same. It was between that and Mary Washington. Because Mary Washington was more south. And the pay difference was like 30-40%. It was significant.
So that's why you decided George Mason Mortgage.
And so...
But I do want to talk about... I forgot. So at this point, Bryce was doing full-time university. And you were also getting a lot of jobs through your dad.
I was doing the contracting too.
So you were getting a good amount from that.
Yeah.
And then I had gotten my job. Yeah. And we actually did have a good chunk of cash held up. I remember it was $40,000 because we put 25 of that down on our house. Yeah. But anyways, I forgot we didn't talk about why we had that much money. It was because of the Mustang. We sold that.
So why I drove the Bronco up, not the Mustang, because we'd sold the Mustang.
And I think that was something that we were pretty proud of at that time, because even though we were so young and still not very savvy with money, we felt like we made that that right choice. We wanted to come up to Virginia and start our life out of the military without any debt.
Yeah.
And we achieved that goal and had cash.
Yeah.
So that we could be set right. So that was good.
Yeah, and that's not nothing. I mean, that's a sizable amount of money.
Yeah.
So we were making mid 2000s from the GI Bill. That was untaxed.
Yeah.
And then the contracting gig, it'd be like a weekend here or a week there, where you just kind of fill in.
I think you were making at least 1,000 a month from that, because yours were like 400 a day.
Yeah, it was very sporadic, but like
an
example was like they would do training for military or government, and then they would need people to work those training events. And so I just came out of the military. I had that same training, so actually like it fit perfectly.
Yeah.
So I was able to kind of use that and the GI Bill to hold us over until
I started my job.
Your job started.
Yeah.
And then that's when the money started rolling in.
Yeah. So then Bryce's, they don't count the GI Bill as income.
No, they don't. And the reason is because it ends. I'm like, well, job ends too. Which is kind of silly because they give you 4 years of it.
But was this at the point, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah. So,
was this because this
I
is
think
the
they
time...
kicked in January.
Yeah, so you did get it, which was cool. I remember we were actually vacationing here in Clearwater.
I remember I was at the gym with Kevin.
Oh, no, yeah, sorry.
That was
when it got lifted. Yeah, so, you were at the gym and I called you.
Yeah. So,
talk about the process of applying for disability. Why it's a big deal for people.
Yeah. So, when you get out, you can file for disability, for any injuries you have, whatever it may be.
And disclaimer, this is a controversial topic, which I think we should talk about that too after.
Sure.
You just do the face value and then we'll talk about the controversy of its perception.
Yeah. So it's so when you get in the military, you file for something called disability, because a lot of people leave with injuries. And it's not always like, oh, I was shot. It's like, oh, hey, my back's blown out, my knees, my shoulders, whatever it may be.
Yeah, my neck, my back.
Exactly, yeah. So you file, and through that process, they evaluate you, and they'll give you a rating from 0 to 100, and the higher you go, the more pay you get as a stipend forever.
Right.
And so I did the filing, and it's, you go to the office, and they tell you, hey, stand up, bend over, like move your arms, this and that. They do like some psychological evaluations. It's the whole 9 yards. Mm-hmm. And then they give you a rating. And so you're kind of, and it's not nothing. It's a good amount of money. It's untaxed. And so, I think we did the evaluation when I got out, and then I had to go to some medical offices in DC, and then you're just waiting. And then January, it wasn't a call. I think
it was a package, and I opened it because I couldn't wait. And I
knew that's right. And then you called me, and I was
at the gym.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of anticipation because you can get a couple different types of ratings, which amount to a certain amount of money a month, and if you get the permanent and total rating, which is a separate rating with your rating,
it changes.
Means that you get paid that forever and you can't be reevaluated, essentially. So
and I'm sure there's nuances that someone could say is wrong.
Oh, for sure.
But it's just in a nutshell.
That's the gist of it. Yeah. And so I remember we were waiting on this. With the VA, there's no tracking of when something's going to come
they'll just say, just look out for it.
So we were like, okay, 2 years from now, you'll get your disability rate. It's not something that we were counting on. But to our surprise, 3 months after you got out in January, I remember it was a big yellow letter, and it said from Veterans Affairs, and I was like, oh my God. And I couldn't wait. I was like, I'm opening it. It was obviously addressed to Bryce. And it clear as day. The first page was, you've been disabled at 80%, I think it was.
That was 90,
90%, and which is $1,800 a month.
Yeah, it was like 18 and some change,
For us at that time, when Bryce was a full-time student, that was a massive deal. We were like, holy crap.
I mean, that was as much money as I was making.
That was half
in the military.
My paycheck, yeah.
Yeah, that was like a significant, I mean, that's significant for anyone.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you call me out at the gym, and I couldn't even concentrate. I had to go home. I was like, this is great.
Yeah, because it kind of meant that you could just focus on school. And not have to get a job. And with the disability, mortgage loaners do count that as income. So then
you can pull loans against it.
With your disability and my job, we were able to apply for a home loan. to get pre-approval to start searching.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about, before you talk about the refiling, did you want to talk about the perception of disability?
Yeah. So there is...
Why it's controversial.
Yeah, there's always I mean, even like my dad, like
sure.
he was rated at like 30, and he even felt uncomfortable doing it. And to put it in front, he actually passed away from smoke inhalation from the burn pits. So I mean, it's like...
In Afghanistan.
Yeah, like this stuff's nasty, and it's, you know, his shoulders and knees were blown out. It's just but people think that if you do that, it's like a sign of weakness. You know, it's... I think
the word is deserving too. I think some people feel that you have to be a certain type of way in order to deserve a paycheck for the military, and I think people are like, oh, you better be in a wheelchair if you're collecting any disability.
They expect you to look like Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump. But and I think a lot of it is because everyone's heard about someone that was like, they've lost their legs, you know,
which is awful.
Oh yeah,
those people do deserve.
Which is awful.
Everything under
the sun. But them not getting it doesn't diminish what you're going through. It just highlights the inefficiency of the disability program, I think.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right.
Because like they'll have it, or some people are complete, like, never left base, never did anything. That not didn't do anything, but just were never harmed in any sort of way.
Didn't contribute to from an infantry standpoint.
Yeah,
they contributed in.
Yeah, they might have had like an office job, and they're getting 100%. And there's some people that are been shot, and they got nothing.
Yeah,
and it's so I think a lot of assumption like, oh, you're kind of a weakling.
They shouldn't be upset with you guys. They should be upset with the inefficiency of the VA process to give people disability.
Yeah.
No,
so there's a lot of that, and I think that stigma is getting a lot better. I think now people are more realizing like, it took me a while too to be like, to not feel weird about talking about it, because now it's a thing.
Because and because people would look at you some type of way. They're like, oh, you feel good about yourself collecting that, and you're like, it's helped our life in a massive way. And when you look at the reality of it, Bryce's back is like really screwed up, and it wouldn't have been if it wasn't for the military.
Well, I think it always got weird too, just like, oh, you don't look like
you're disabled,
out of shape in a wheelchair. I'm like, so what? I need to just like look depressed and not leave the bed? I don't know. So I think there's definitely the imaging of that has helped a lot.
Yeah.
And gotten better. Mm-hmm. And I think now like a lot of veterans are like leaving now too, and they realize like, like your knees and shoulders are shot.
Yeah.
Like there's only so many like pressure and damage you can put on those limbs before they just like they can't go back.
Yeah, sure. And so I would like to say, for anyone that might say, well, you know, you guys having disability is lucky and helpful, but
I say lucky and helpful, but I say, hey, the recruiting office is open. You can walk your happy ass down there and go enlist too,
and go through the bullshit for 4 years to get that.
Yeah, everyone's talking shit.
No, you're right.
The war's always hiring.
No, you're right, and that's what I'm saying in your defense, and in other people in your position. If you know, you know. People that didn't go through it are always going to talk crap.
Yeah.
And the people that talk crap about it but did go through it have every right to also apply, and are just jealous that they haven't gone through the work it takes to apply, because it's a process.
Yeah, it is frustrating.
Yeah, like, it's frustrating.
It's hunting down documents. It's keeping
everything in order of your records, your medical records.
Yeah.
Getting checked up on and documented. Yeah, it's. I mean, you put in that work. You put in those 4 years of HE double hockey sticks.
Yeah.
And you were afforded this opportunity, so you took advantage of it, and it has helped us in a big way.
Oh yeah.
But you wouldn't have been afforded that opportunity if you didn't do your service, your time in the military.
Yeah.
So we'll just leave it at that, and people are gonna say what they're gonna say.
Oh yeah, and I just like to say, if you didn't do time in, then honestly your opinion doesn't mean shit. You know what you're talking about.
No, for sure.
And if you did and you haven't filed, stop being lazy. Go file.
Call us.
Yeah.
Bryce will tell you how to.
Yeah, and then
it's a service he provides on the side.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later.
It's just been like, we found a really good company that helped us out. And there's no like referral thing here. Just like I like talking about it because one,
it's life changing for us. So.
It's kind of fucked up that they make it so hard that you have to hire like an outside consultant.
When the government provides this money for people that need it.
Yeah.
And they should be able to get it.
Yeah. And if you did find any good results, like try again. Like we had to try twice to get like a good result that we wanted. But it's worth it. I mean, look at it as like an investment, if you will.
Sure, yeah. Invest your time, get the reward.
Yeah. So I feel we can end there. That was a good run.
Yeah. We'll talk about, I think next episode we can pick up on
settling in Virginia.
Our home buying process. That was the first time buying a home. I think that'll be good.
Yeah, that's a good one. So
we'll talk about that next time. So
sweet. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you guys for watching. If you liked this and want more, subscribe or comment below. We'll see you here next time on Iron Bay Research. Bryce and Kara signing out.